Welcome back, everyone. If you can forgive my cold, today's video will be looking at a number of scenarios, possible scenarios for the uranium price, and looking at a pick or what I would choose if that was the scenario that I was convinced was going to happen. So this is just a bunch of picks for different events playing out in different ways. So before I begin, I just want to point out that I own many of the names in this, and there's some other names that I do own that aren't here. That's just kind of how it came out. Now, there are a few repeats through this thing, so don't hate me. I tried to make a conscious effort to look at each scenario individually and separately and think what's best for this and make a pick. There are a lot of scenarios. Some are slightly repetitive, some are kind of out there. But so I'm going to try and go through this pretty quickly. Just scenario, pick one or two picks, and that's it. Okay, you like the bull thesis, but you think it's probably going to take a number of years, and you don't really want to bleed on the downside until then. Okay, in this scenario, you can go, I believe, with Uranium Participation Corp, which should just track the price of uranium. Its decay is minimal. Or you can probably go with Global Atomic. Those are my two picks for this scenario. I think Global Atomic, because of the zinc production, will not decay as much as any other uranium stock. So those are the two picks for this scenario. What if you think that the price is going to get to $50 very soon and then plateau there for a number of years? Okay, so there's a number of things that would have to be going on in this scenario, but I think the winners in this type of thing might be something like Boss Resources and Cameco. And this is because Boss Resources, for example, would come back online. I think they could make it work at 50. They'd have a cash flow and they'd have more strength than their peers. Cameco also has multiple assets that can work at 50, so they can again ramp up to full production, have their cash flow, be making money, doing business, and survive, and then worry about future assets. So if this is the scenario, these are my picks. Something for a sovereign to buy. And by this, I mean there's a number of entities out there that may go shopping for pounds for security of supply. So what do they want? They want something big, they want something they can own, and that's mainly it. They're more concerned about that than price. So big. Well, you have Bannerman, you have Forces, you have Global Atomics, DASA. Those are all pretty big. Deep Yellow, it's a bit PC for now. But so, and all three of these projects, or all three of these companies, I should say, Bannerman, Forces, and Global Atomic, are in Africa, which is not a region like North America where a Chinese power or a Russian power or whatever it might be would have trouble buying. I believe they'd be able to buy in Africa. Mining is a risky business. Junior mining is a risky path to risky business. Now, there's a lot of people who may like the uranium thesis if they knew it or if they don't know it, but they just have no interest in buying miners. And I've spoken with a number of people who are like, they just have no interest in miners because they're too risky. Well, if this is your view, then the real pick would be either Uranium Participation Corp or Yellowcake. So I think they'll do fine, and I think risk reward, they're pretty good picks. Okay, so similar to the last, what if you're looking for a safe location, a safe cost? So like tier one location, tier one cost, and still want a decent amount of upside. Well, for that, the pick would be probably Boss. Because by safe cost, I'm thinking something that could go into production and work 50 or below. And for that, you have Boss and a number of other things. But once you filter out the location and once you filter out the time to production, uh, Boss would be my pick for this scenario. This scenario I'll call restart with the biggest upside. So this is a bit of a dark horse pick in terms of value with that could end up doing particularly well, and it's a restart. Lotus. It's interesting. It's interesting. Now, if things drag on and there's extended care and maintenance costs, well, then there's going to be a bit of dilution here. But if, you know, there's a lot of value here in this tiny stock. Scenario. Price rockets to $100 tomorrow, 100 or more. What do you want? You want pounds that are cheap today. You want maximum leverage to the upside. You want uncommitted pounds. In this scenario, the winner would be something Bannerman-like. Okay, maximum upside defined projects, but that still have a few questions. Well, here you're basically looking for as cheap pounds in as sizable projects as possible. And for that, you can basically get in pretty cheap on Forces and Plateau, along with a number of explorers who obviously unproven, but don't really have defined projects yet. The reason I go with Forces and Plateau, well, just look at their resource, their project, their economics, what have you. And also, yes, I know the questions that they have. That's why they're here in the with questions category. What if I was looking for something that were to be a multi-asset producer? For me, the main two options there for the Paladin model, not the big return Paladin model, but the multi-asset producer Paladin model. For me, the two Gs, Global Atomic and GoVX would be the two that I would look at for there. Okay, so what's the most likely candidate to outperform the sector until the turn? For me, this is Global Atomic. Again, nothing to do with the uranium, more to do with the fact that they have cash flow. And so one could say, well, Cameco or Kazatomprom. And I would say yes, except that Cameco and Kazatomprom are both in production, producing a lot of uranium now, so that's kind of detracting from future value. Now you could say they do have cash flows, but I think that most of that is working towards being priced in, whereas Global Atomic, they are profitable and actually increase their uranium future value as long as the downturn remains. So okay, now these next few slides are more of me defining who I believe is really in the category versus who I would pick in this category. So here we're talking about the race to production. Who can be the fastest to production that isn't uh, already in production, obviously. So tier one, I would have, and these are the quickest batch to production. I would have Uranium Energy Corp, Boss, and Laramide are all in that ISR to come online category, can come online probably in less than a year, permit permitting. Permit permitting. Yeah. Anyway, now the race to production tier two. And I'm not saying that tier one companies are better than tier two. I just think tier two will take a bit more time than tier one. And oddly, I know many people will disagree with this, but I will have Paladin in tier two. Why do I have Paladin in tier two? This is basically the only thing I'm really going to justify here. So Paladin, before they can go back into production, they need a definitive feasibility study. That's just what they said. They said that it'll take 9 months to be started once the uranium price reaches a more satisfactory level, meaning 9 months plus 12 months to ramp up to do the construction, and then another 12 months to ramp up to full production. Even if we remove that last 12 months to get to full production, we're still talking about a year and 3/4 once the price moves. And I think that the ISR can come in before that, even though Paladin is a shut-in mine. So in a race to production scenario, Paladin's more tier 2, along with Vimy, which mainly requires 2 years construction plus the contracting and finance and all that, same as GoVX. And then there's something like Bannerman, which same type of deal, except requires a bit of longer of construction. A number of people that care about management, and that's all. If that were my only criteria, there's a number of managements out there that I like. There's more than two out there that I like. There's a number out there that I really dislike, and there's a number out there that I'm not crazy about, but think that they're all right. So, if all I cared about was management, um, two of the picks I might go with might be Encore and Bannerman. So this is less of an opinion, but still kind of an opinion if you really dig in, because there are other options that could be on this list that I'm choosing to not put on it because I am aware of them. But anyway, the biggest resource is next gen, followed by followed not super closely, but there's a close race for second between Bannerman and Global Atomic. Now, for the moment, I believe Bannerman is larger. Both, I suppose, could be expanded. So for that, there's no way of telling the future. But those are the biggest resources, and in a single project, that is. And I just figured I'd throw in biggest ISR I believe that I'm aware of is Boss. I believe that's bigger than Laramides, and I can't think of any bigger ones. So yeah, U.S. uranium producer. Pick one. Encore. I know it's not perfect, but it risk reward wise, it's my favorite. Which region of the world do I view as the most undervalued when it comes to uranium projects and companies? For me, it's Africa, and there's a bit of a margin there between Africa and the next region. Okay, so what are a few projects that I might really like if they were bigger? And some of them can get bigger. So which ones would I really like? Well, I think the main fault that I would give, or one of the main faults I would give to Azarga's Dewey Burdock is it's not that big. It still can be a cash flow machine, but if it were bigger resource, more productive capacity, that would be really interesting to me. Deep Yellow's, all of their projects, they have a number, but they're looking to me like they're going to require separate kind of mines at each place, maybe a centralized facility, maybe that could help on the cost, but there's I they'd have to, for me they'd have to be bigger at this point, and that's good. They're getting bigger. They're spending on that. And I don't really know how to pronounce this, but Isakanan also is another project where if it gets bigger could be really interesting in and of itself, and I'll let people figure out what that is all about. Um, and in terms of in terms of exploration and in the Athabasca Basin, we have, well, there's the Hurricane Zone, Spitfire Zone, and Moore Lake. All have really interesting little nuggets of high-grade uranium, but well, I would think would be much, much more interesting if they could find a little bit more in the region. Athabasca Basin Explorer, pick one. Sky Harbor. Now, there are a lot of very interesting geological projects out there in the Athabasca Basin. Well, I mean, for geology, at least to me. Now, one of the main reasons that I picked Sky Harbor here is the insiders just keep buying at this point, and there's a geological reason that something is piquing my curiosity, but I'm not going to get into that here. But needless to say, there's probably five of these things that I want to own. A few of them that I do own some, but a few more that I'm very interested in. So been looking around this space recently, but the one right now that has my curiosity most piqued is Sky Harbor. And the final scenario, to no one's surprise, if I could only buy one single uranium stock, for me, it would be Global Atomic. Not going to get into why here, but those are the scenarios I will cover for today. That's all for today. Thanks everyone for watching, and I just want to reiterate for the 5 millionth time, none of this is investment advice. Consider this heavily biased and listen to nothing I say. Just take it and do your own research, and best of luck to all of you.